And we are back. And guess what? We are on a very familiar roof with a very familiar kit. And today it's the big one. Now, this will be a continuation to my text piece, which was the well-rounded inf player, part 1, which you can find on the Extirpate Discord in I think it was a little bit over 6,000 letters. And in that text piece, I made the point that every elite player, or even top level player, need to have a good M16. So that's basically a requirement if you're an inf player. However, a lot of top players or elite players will also develop a significant tube game. It's one of the easiest ways to branch out, to sort of create some more depth to your playstyle. And I consider it to be the second most... Well, you can make the argument between assault and support. It is the situational dependent, but I think the assault kit is more it is more versatile than the support kit. So I do think that assault kit is more important. It's it's the second most important kit after medic, in my opinion. But unlike the M16, which every player has to be proficient with, not every player needs to be good with the tube or play tube at all, actually. Even though a lot of really famous players are known for the tube, you know, obviously Unrelitas, Campus, DragSD, you know, of players playing today, you have Bleda who loves it, and obviously myself have played a lot of tube. Not every top or elite player favors the tube. There have been players who played their entire career without hardly ever playing it, and so it's not a requirement to be, you know, really, really good. But it is a little... it is a cool trick to pull out for the right situation that can really turn a game around. And players who play a lot of tube will often become associated with the tube. And they will also find comfort in the tube when things aren't working. Which brings me on to my next point. The tube is, or can be, a slippery slope. And you can grow overly dependent on it, and you can start spawning tube when you shouldn't. So, if you ever seen my frag movie, you know it starts on this specific roof with a crazy streak that, even though it looks impressive on film, it is really indicative of some issues. So because the assault kit is a kit that a lot of people turn to when things aren't working for them. It's like a crutch. You can, if you're really good, or if you're really hot with the tube in a game, or if you're really good with it in general, you can use it as a crutch, and you can cover up a personal weakness or a weakness within the team, and you can actually turn situations around in your favor, even though you are losing the game. And this was the case for me in 2013, when we didn't really have... we weren't able to sort of beat the best teams in a conventional way, so I ended up defaulting to this roof on Nashtur, because I felt I had to do something to sort of make us win, basically. So it is... And it looks really impressive when everything is going your way. Like, it's kind of like dribbling in football. It looks awesome But if you overdo it, you're just going to end up giving away the ball. And when you start overspawning tube and you try to force the tube into situations where it doesn't fit, you can end up becoming a liability for your team. So just be aware of that. The tube is not a good all-round kit. It's a situational kit. And it's positional and situational dependent. And if you know, it's also a danger with growing too dependent on the tube, because it can really take away from your proficiency with the medic kit. And I believe this is because, or one reason is that the way you seek out opportunities with the tube, when you're sort of looking for somewhere to have impact, you're sort of looking around for someone to kill, to get an easy kill on, and to sort of tube the revive, and the way you look for opportunities and openings with the tube, it relies on different timings than what you would use if you were playing medic. So if you play with tube a lot, you can actually sort of it can sort of weaken your instincts a little bit to how you actually play medic most efficiently. So, because as a tube player, you sort of get used to living in a bubble where you're not really too concerned with what the rest of your team is doing or what's going on around you. You're sort of only concerned with how you're going to sort of create that opening for yourself. So it is a tube that, or it is a kit that doesn't really affect team play in any positive way. So if especially if your team isn't working, that's what I mean is with it's becoming a slippery slope. You can sort of, things can spiral out of control, and you as a player can lose your, I don't know, maybe you lose one identity and you gain something else. Obviously, the tube is without a doubt very impactful when it's working. But when it's not working, you're gonna look like you're throwing the game. So there is a danger associated with it. But I think it's like, it's a balance, like everything. If you spawn tube in the correct situation and you don't overdo it, it can be a really impactful thing. Like it can really completely rip apart the other team. Like that first clip on in my frag movie where I basically, you know, sort of, and that wasn't the only time, by the way. There has been several times where I have sort of wiped the other team from this roof. But this is sort of, I wouldn't sort of recommend trying to seek out this kind of position, because this is sort of, I'm basically going into a bit more specific thing here, but in this particular roof, and if you look in the frag movie, in my frag movie, the first clip, we actually have every flag except Northbridge. So in that situation, when you're sort of winning and you're ahead, and you sort of, it's very likely that the entire enemy team is gonna rush South Block. In that situation, you can basically deny them everything by going on this roof. Like you can really, if they commit to South Block and you're on this roof, they're basically trapped. There is, and that's like sort of the optimal. But the flip side of that is that when I did this in 2013, it wasn't expected. But nowadays, if I'm playing Mushroom, everyone assumes I'm going to be on this roof. And that means that it's no longer effective, because, or it's not effective to the same degree, because, and I'm going to talk about this more in a little bit, but the way you play with the tube, I mean, having the element of surprise is crucial. And if they, to avoid the tube, it's not that it's not that hard if you see it coming. The problem with facing a tube really sort of spiral out of control when you are trapped, when you already committed and you can't protect yourself from the tube. But if you see the tube coming, if you anticipate it ahead of time, you can avoid it. That's because like that's the ideal thing. The ideal thing is to sort of draw in the enemy and make them commit and then trap them. Like it's not a good all-round kit. And like the tube is a kit, like a lot of people sort of ask me, or not a lot of people, but occasionally it happens that someone asks me, oh, have any tips for the tube or whatever. And I always tell people that it's not about making crazy shots. I mean, it looks impressive on film and all that. It's not about sort of, oh, there's a guy over there, boom. Like, because it's... If you start doing that, you're just gonna waste your time, you're gonna waste your ammo, you're gonna have zero impact if you apply it in the wrong way. It's very, as I said before, it's positional and situational. And it's also a kit that relies on situational awareness and instinct. It's not really a kit about sort of having ultimate precision with the tube in every range, like being able to hit every shot. I mean, if you can do that, obviously that's great, but I don't know of any human who could. So it sort of boils down to how you play the tube. It's not, you can't sort of just brute force it. Like you have to play it smart. And obviously it's easy to say, hard to do, but I firmly believe that it's going to depend very much on your natural inclinations as a player, like your natural playstyle, like the playstyle you sort of, like how you fit the tube. It's going to be sort of, it's going to be predetermined, well, maybe not predetermined, I'm sure you can sort of adapt to it, but for some players it just clicks, and for other players it doesn't, and I don't know why. It's just the way it is. But I'm gonna go to another map here. I just want to start out on Muster, but we are gonna go to Road and see. Because similarly to the frag grenade or the grenade video I made, I don't know, a few months ago, I also have a flag in mind to talk about the application of the tube. Because when I see, I mean, even though like Unreal It Does, for example, he was famous for using the tube, but there are a lot of things in his frag movie that I think is like for example, he spawns tube as the attacking side on Sharky initial, which is I don't doubt his ability with the tube, but there is no way that he's going to be more effective with the tube in that situation than the medic. I'm having a hard time seeing that. So even though, and it sort of goes into what I said before, you can become too dependent on it. You can start spawning it when it doesn't really make sense. Because the problem also, as always with this game, is the randomness of the game. Like just as with the grenade, the tube doesn't go straight. It goes a little bit left and right and left and right, and it is hard to be. It is sometimes hard to be consistent with it, like when setting up shots. Like if I was gonna tube the corner there, like even if I aim correctly, I can still hit the edge of the wall. So.
Position cleared and under control.
But now I'm gonna go into what I consider the most crucial part about playing tube. And that is, you have to remember this, the most important thing. OP approved way of thinking. Have a plan. Have a plan. So, Road is a little bit of a special map because there are a lot of spawns, especially, I mean, Mosque has like 9 or 10 spawns. So, and that is sort of a crucial thing to take into consideration. Because while we can all agree, like this flag is nasty, and that has to do with the geometry here. So the main cover on the flag is round. And that creates an obstacle with the tube. That it just become more complex hitting your tube, because if this was a square, you can stand on the corner of the square and you can tube sort of straight in either direction. But because this is round, you have to go further out. Like, it's a hard flag to sort of tube, but there is a saving feature here, and that is obviously it has a roof. And we all know tubing from an elevated position, the tube sort of works opposite the grenade, whereas it's harder to grenade downwards and easier to grenade upwards. The tube is opposite. It's harder or impossible to nade upwards. I mean, you can do the straight up tube, which will make it land after a while about 30 some meters away from you. So you see I hit the roof there. So, I mean, if you're feeling lucky and you're very, very good with it and you have the time, sure, you can. But it's easier to tube down. And obviously, let's say you're defending this flag. My first choice would be to spawn on the roof. So if someone says, oh, 3 guys pushing market and I'm the only one who can spawn, I'm gonna say, okay, I'm gonna spawn and try to defend. So I'm going back to what I said. Have a plan. What is the plan? Well, I hope, fingers crossed, that I spawn roof. The problem is statistics. Assuming there is an equal chance for every spawn. 1, 2. I'm gonna try not to fuck up here. 3, 4, I think. 5. 6. So I think that was every spawn. So I'm not good at math, but I'm not going to give you a percentage, but 1/6 chance to get the spawn you want. Those odds are shit. Now, if I have to, or if there is a chance we can get the outcap, or if we have to avoid the outcap, I might take those odds. If the tube kit, if I get the spawn, if this is, I'm not saying this is the flag, I've marked this the flag for this, but let's say I was defending a flag that if I got the tube spawn in the spawn I want, that I can like 90% sure I can defend the flag against 3 enemies. Like, then I might take 1/6 of the odds. But in this case, I mean, if I spawn here, I'm lucky. But if I, for example, spawn here, what do you do? I mean, I don't have nades. I can't heal myself. It's really hard to tube on flat terrain, and it's near impossible to do anything with considering the geometry of the fountain. Like, sure, I can try to get it behind that desk, but to do this under pressure also. When you're under pressure, you're not going to be able to... It's really it's really easy to sort of overshoot or undershoot your target when you're stressed. And that's also a factor. But the point I'm trying to make here is that if I could predict the future, if I knew I was going to get this spawn, this spawn, this spawn, or this spawn, I would choose medic. Like from these positions, I will, unless I'm lucky. Obviously, I can get the spawn here, and they might just be the enemy might just be lined up on outside here, and not see me immediately. Boom, boom. Right. You know, you can still get lucky, but assuming that let's say there are 3 guys, chances are that they will spot you. So assuming that they will spot me, in most of the spawns on this flag, I will want a medic kit. I don't want the tube kit. So the flag up here in the corner by trash, I'm a little bit torn. Like there is less of a chance that they will be able to spot you immediately if you spawn here. So I might take my chances with the tube kit here. But let's just say that 2 out of the 4, for sure, 2 out of the 4, or 4 out of the 6 spawns, I would probably pick medic. So when you think like that, I mean, the logical conclusion is that you shouldn't spawn tube, because the chances do not favor you. Now, as I said, it can still work out. But have a plan. Think to yourself, this flag that I'm about to spawn, what position, like if I'm going to use the tube kit, where do I want to be? And are there spawns on this flag where I absolutely do not want to be with the tube? And you sort of have to go with your gut feeling a little bit sometimes also, but being logical, it will be the correct thing most of the time to just sort of think logically and like, yeah, it would be great if I got the best spawn and I was able to tube them all. But I'm gonna play it safe. The odds does not favor me. I'm gonna spawn medic. So that's what I mean by not overdoing it. If you only spawn tube every time you spawn back to defend, you will end up in bad situations a lot of the time. And even though your mind will remember those sweet, sweet moments where you completely crushed everyone by yourself with the glorious tube kit, even though your mind will remember those, the reality will be that you fuck up again and again and again and again, and you get those once in a while where you wipe them completely. But this is not a good all-round kit, not even close. It's a specialist kit for special situations, special positions, special circumstances. For example, on Master, on Hotel, people think that it's the perfect tube flag, but it really isn't. Like, it can work, but it brings me on to something else that I always stress when I'm talking about tube, that the tube is really bad by itself. So if you have another player, so let's say I'm defending this flag from, the roof. Oh, how many times do I have to spawn to get the roof? This just sort of okay, so 4 times I got the spawn I wanted. You obviously can't do that in a real match. So that's the problem with statistics. If they don't favor you, then they don't favor you. But let's say I'm defending against 3 guys here, and I have a teammate who spawns on one of these other flags as a medic, and he sort of initiates contact. that's when the viability of the tube just skyrockets. Now your potential damage will sort of go through the roof because the players in the fountain will now be distracted. And they will not pay 100% attention to you, and they will probably be standing still, trying to shoot someone. But if you are by yourself and they spot you, they will try to evade you. And that makes it really hard to beat tube. And this is actually, the tube is actually one of those things that is fairly good, it's balanced fairly well in this game. So, because when you tube someone, the time it takes for you to reload is significantly longer than it takes for the other person, his teammates, to revive him. So that's the main problem with being somewhere like Hotel Roof on Marster and tube someone, because unless they are by themselves, you're not gaining anything, because the guy will be on his feet long before you're done reloading. And that brings me on to my one other important issue I have when I see people who are novice or maybe intermediate with the tube. What they usually do is that they usually... So I'm going to take another position for this. So let's say I get lucky. Let's say 3 guys are rushing in here and I spawn here and I see them in the back here. So what a lot of noob tubes will do is that they will tube first, like this. And, you know, maybe reload immediately or pick up the gun. The problem with that is that, first off, you have now alerted your enemy that there is a tube on the field. And that changes the dynamics of how they're gonna play. The moment there is a tube on the field, they will behave differently. And they will make it hard for you if they're good. If you shoot the guy in the back and you sort of move out of the way, and you, let's say he died close to the fountain wall here, they are not immediately alerted that, because obviously the AK is the AK, no matter what, if you're tube or medic or whatever. So they're not immediately alerted to the fact that there's a tube at play here. So they might just... the guy will call, I got shot in the back. And they might just think that I'm running behind the building here to go roof or come trash. And they might actually go for the revive without looking, without doing some scouting first. And you actually have, oh, that was really bad, but you get what I mean. You actually have a good chance to get them both. And sort of then you can rush in and you can duel the last guy. So, if you don't tube first, unless it's like 90% of situations, don't try to tube first, because and that's one reason why having really good dueling ability and you know, positional awareness, being able to sort of successfully being very proficient at killing people with a rifle very quickly, 1v1, is really a beneficial skill to have if you're playing a tube, because even if 3 guys were rushing at me behind this box here, if I'm doing like a correct peek at the correct time and get a quick kill, I can now... I'll take the last guy, right? I can now tube the revive, like... and obviously this is what I say when I mean that, like... this is what I mean when I say that the tube kit is really dependent or reliant on situational awareness and instinct. Because if you mistime your peaks when you're sort of facing 3 guys, first off, you have to take them by surprise. That's a given. Like, there is no way you're taking 3 guys of your own skill level with the tube, no matter what. Like, you have to be, unless you're lucky, like, you have to take them by surprise. But you get the first kill with the rifle, and now you have like a 50-50 chance. If they go for the instant revive, you get the tube, you kill the last guy. You can actually do it. But if you tube first, you're fucked. Like, there is no other word for it. You are fucked. Like, if 3 guys come for you, you tube first, you're done. Like, there's nothing. You waste. You missed your opportunity. It's a complete waste. Don't tube first. If you go for the rifle kill and you die, you know, fair enough. But you at least give yourself a chance, because if you get that, getting this rifle kill in a 1v3, getting that first rifle kill is the prerequisite for continuing or for having any success. Now, some of, like, maybe in my frag movies or some of my streams, there is a situation where I tube first. I mean, I'm not gonna say I never tube first, but as a general rule, try not to tube first. And it goes back to what I said about having a plan. Have a plan. Because here's the thing: when you're gonna mount a successful, the noob tube is not really such a good, like, last second spawn defense kit. Like, the tube works best if you have a little bit of foresight when you're actually, if you're actually able to be like 20 seconds ahead of the push. That's when the tube is at its most dangerous, because that will actually give you time to do something like this. Now I can sort of get an easy kill in the back, and I can hide. Boom. And I can sort of catch them by surprise from a position that they don't expect, and a position that makes it easy for me to sort of see what's going on. So the difference between that, like in terms of success rate, and spawning down here like at the last second when they're just about to come around the corner, that could mean the difference between, like, that's a significant difference in probability for success. So whenever you're gonna sort of, I think, like, the tube kit favors, this is gonna sound really, I'm just gonna say it. The tube kit favors smart players. Players who at least are individually smart about how they play. Because, I mean, I will give Pleda credit, even though... Okay, I'm gonna try not to be an asshole here. But even though Pleda sort of comes off as a retard in a lot of situations, I'm gonna give him credit that when it comes to how he's actually moving around the battlefield, like how he peeks, how he moves, how he sort of, when he's offensive, when he's defensive, he actually plays quite smart. Like, he plays individually smart, at least. I'm not saying he's very team smart. I don't know enough about him to say that, but he plays individually smart. And I think, like, that really plays into, or that's one of the reasons why the tube suits him so well. So that's why I say that if you are a very, like, I'm not going to name names for this one, but if you are a very one-dimensional fragger, the tube might not be made for you. Like, just saying. But another problem with this is if you do it wrong, like if you predict that someone is going to push here, and you sort of set up on if you sort of set up on a roof here, if you actually spawn ahead like 20 seconds ahead of the push, and you sort of take the time to go on the roof and, like, oh, when are they coming, like, and like, you're gonna bait them into the flag and make them commit. Like, if they for some reason divert from this flag, they don't push here, they actually go HOTL instead, then suddenly you are probably for some time gonna be out of play and not have any impact. So you give up a lot of options by doing this, both on the team level and individually, because you could have been doing something else. That's also one reason why I think the tube favors players who have really good instincts. about, because some players just have a three-dimensional awareness that they just sort of intuitively feel where the push is coming and when. And when you are that type of player, when you're sort of able to sort of feel when the push is where the push is coming, just like it can be any number of small things. It can be tiny hints on your radar about what has just happened. It can be communications from teammates, whatever. Like people who have played this game for a long time, they will pick up on small cues like that sort of signal where the push is going to come. And if you're really good at it, you can actually predict quite a bit ahead of time where the push is coming. It is, I'm going to give you an example on that actually. So it is like having good prediction is really crucial in this, but it's like I don't think, as I said before, I don't think the tube kit is a good offensive all-rounder or an all-rounder in general. But I don't think it's a good offensive kit at all, actually. I do not think it plays into the tube's strength, because you do not want to be the guy who's gonna... you do not want to attack with the tube. You want... because if they see you, if you're just like attacking with the tube, first off, you can't heal yourself and you have nowhere to hide and you can't really do much. Like the medic is so far superior to the tube in an offensive role. The tube really shines as a defensive kit because it allows you to take advantage of the tube's main strength, and that is when the enemy is trapped. Because as I said before, it's really easy to avoid the tube if you can clearly see where it's deployed and when. Because the tube does not have very good survivability against a bunch of medics. Like, you cannot survive long. If a bunch of medics know where you are and what you're doing, you have a very bad survivability rate because you cannot heal yourself. So if a bunch of medics see where you are and you have and they haven't committed to your position and they're able to deal with you beforehand, like before they push in, you're fucked. Like, you are simply fucked. Because the clue with the tube is to sort of, you want in order to be able to do those things that you sometimes see in frag movies or highlights with the tube, you want the enemy to come to you. You want them to play into your position. And the ideal situations is for the enemy to not realize that there is a tube in play until it's too late, until they have passed the sort of like event horizon for your position and what they want to achieve. Like, they have actually moved past the point where they can actually deal with you effectively. And for example, in this situation, if they sort of saw me as they were running up here, I mean, what can I do? Like, I can evacuate the roof and basically give up my plan. But if they move into the flag zone before they actually see me up here, suddenly there's very little they can do because they are surrounded by spawns on all sides, which they have to look out for. And I am basically looking down on them with the most devastating weapon from this position. So you like, that's the ideal situation to sort of have the enemy commit. And that's where I say have a plan. Have a plan and play smart, because you cannot defeat medics straight up in a battle. There is no way. They have to make some kind of... They have to sort of... Yeah, commit first. But as an example, like... and this comes from a very specific match we played earlier this year on Karkan. where we were defending, and I was on this roof. And suddenly a guy pushed out here from the side. And because we didn't know where the squad leader was. So that's one clue. Like the fact that there is a guy there suddenly. That probably means that the squad leader is pushing around here any second. So to be able to pick up on clues like that, you have to if you don't realize it immediately that this guy who's pushing out here, who's not a squad leader, he didn't teleport to that position, he spawned on someone. So to be able to sort of read that very quickly, because you have to react immediately if you're going to be here ahead of them. Like you can't be late, you can't sort of stand around square, sort of wondering where the guy came from. You have to be proactive in that sense, and react immediately. So there are a lot of good players will pick up on those and sort of feel the flow of the game and where the push is going to come. And if you're able to do that successfully, then you have a good chance of sort of getting the enemy to sort of commit past their, past the point of no return. And that's something to look out for. Like, it is the perfect ambush kit. But if you by any chance sort of spawn, if you spawn out in the open like here and they spot you, because this is one of those flags. I mean, a market flag is actually a really good tube flag. There are the worst spawn you can get is the spawn over there, I think. Like, if you get that spawn, you're a little bit out of luck. But crucially, 1, 2, 3. 3 spawns are really good for the tube, in my opinion, or can be good. So this is actually a 3/4 chance for getting a good spawn. So if you buy any, this is actually something that you don't see other people do at all. Mostly, but I have actually, like, obviously, between I stopped playing BF2, I played Counter-Strike a bunch, like 5,500 hours in CSGO, 1,000 hours Source. So I really got used to sort of using smoke. But the thing is, it's actually more useful in BF2 than you might think. So if you actually get a shit spawn and they spot you with the tube, you can you can cover your approach, and it actually works. Like, it legit works. So that's one thing. If you get a shit spawn and you can conceivably hide behind here, pop the smoke over, wait a little bit, and then sort of try to do something. Try to wait for the guy to peek. If the smoke is here, try to wait for the guy to peek around the edge of it. Like, it actually works. And I actually used this on Hotel Flag Zone when I was defending one time, because the guy was standing behind the wall on Hotel, on Mashter, and I just sort of smoked the flag zone, the middle of, like, between me and him. And I was actually just sort of looking around the edge of it. And eventually he came around the edge, as it's the logical thing to do, and I actually got the kill on him. So tactical smoke actually works in this game in certain situations. Yeah, you'd be surprised. But in general, like, this is a side point, but I generally don't favor the tube on Karkan. I much favor the support kit on this. I mean, I know Pleda loves the tube on Karkan, for example, but I think it's really good on market. Other than that, I'm not a big fan. I'm not a fan of going on that roof. I don't like it. I think it takes too much time, because it's not as good as the South Block roof on muster, in my opinion. So, but there are bound to be many positions that will work really well with the tube that I have never played or never conceived of going. But the tube is really good if you use it correctly. If you use it the wrong way, as I said, it is a slippery slope. But it's something I would recommend every player at least try out and see if it suits them. Like because if you have this in your bag, the threat is very real. Like it's something you notice, like especially for a player like myself. I know this from first-hand experience, that when players fear your tube, like when the other team actually starts to fear what you can do with the tube, you will have a fear factor that and this goes for every player who is really good with the tube or who has shown proficiency with the tube, is that it sort of changes a little bit how I mean, after a while the other players will start to sort of take precautions. So you can end up in a situation where you feel it becomes harder and harder to pull off magic. But players, like, for example, I have experienced that sometimes players avoid going south block on muster just because they saw my frag movie. Like, they can literally just avoid that flag in certain situations. So it can change. It can have a psychological impact as well. But these days I really don't favor the tube much. I have sort of gone back to playing a lot of medic. But you know, I will always love the tube still. It's magic when it works, and it's sort of like an unhealthy addiction, or it becomes. I mean, which I'm sure a lot of other players who played a lot of tube can attest to. It is seductive, kind of like dribbling in football, as I mentioned in the beginning. But yeah, I just want to make one more point here, and that is, it goes back to what I said about, like, you know, what you see in frag movies and highlights. You see crazy shots and stuff, like long distance shots and shots from across the map and all that kind of stuff. And it looks impressive, but it's actually not really it's not really smart to go for those shots a lot of the time, because I'm gonna tell you exactly why. This is gonna be my closing statement here, but it is one very important thing to remember, and that you have to make the tube count. You have to hit the tube, because if you don't hit the tube, if you don't have tube, what you're left with, you have a smoke grenade. You don't have any grenades. You don't have any way to heal yourself. You have an AK. I mean, you can take one more bullet to the chest than a medic, that's about it. But you have less sprint, you have the same weapon as a medic. So if you don't make your tube count, you're actually just a less effective medic. Like, you can't revive, like, not even less effective, horribly less effective, like, a lot less effective. So that's why I emphasize that if you can, it's not about making the most crazy shot. It's about hitting the correct timing and making the correct shot that will actually net you the frag, like 100%. Because the consistency, and that's one of the reasons why when I made my frag movie, I was very adamant, like, I wanted to show streaks of tubing. Not just single frags, I want to show streaks, because it shows consistency. And make the tube count. Go for the easy frag. There's no shame in going for an easy frag, but you have to hit the tube, because if you don't hit the tube, you might as well be medic. So Make it count. Don't overspawn it. Don't grow too dependent on it, because as I said in all of these videos, the foundation of all infantry play is the medikit. I would rather be 100% with the medikit than be 50-50, you know. So, that's it. Later.